will record this webinar, and the record will start right now because we were just about to start. I think you can see it if you are able to see. I don't know.
Yes, there's a notification in top left corner.
Yes, it's recording. Yeah. So why don't we start first, and we'll see how it goes. Okay. So first of all, welcome to the first webinar on entrepreneurship. On this type, this is a joint venture of these two distinguished institutions. It is organized by Institute of Economics Skopje, since Cyril and Methodius, and TOBB ETU from Ankara. So we have been discussing for a while about making this event, because in our discussions we have find out that all this environment is pretty much changing with a high-paced dynamic, and the most affected area it's becoming entrepreneurship, because in entrepreneurship we have all this spectrum of different companies, individuals who are on the market, who are trying to survive and who are trying to make the difference and promote many different products and ideas. So we come up to this activity. So we say we'll start to analyze a little bit what are the changes and how those changes are affecting entrepreneurship overall, so we can find a better way. So today we have this webinar, which is the first stage of making this international conference at the end of the year. So that's the plan. But this webinar will serve as a platform to find out what are those specific things that we can or we will have this as a challenges, so we can discuss or research later on towards the end of the year. So that's why today we will discuss four main topics. We'll discuss global entrepreneurship. We'll discuss methodology of determining the success probability of entrepreneurship ideas. We'll discuss entrepreneurship challenges with respect to changes of economic environment. And we'll discuss the most important thing, part of the education. Do we provide students with enough digital entrepreneurship competences? So for today discussion and today webinar, we have four distinguished speakers, and I will introduce them to you. I will start with Professor Ramazan Aktaş. He has been giving a lecture on business administration in military academy since
Zoran, I think,
yes.
First of all, Arda is supposed to talk to us. As you know, we try to provide such kind of cooperation between us. Firstly, he will talk to us about entrepreneurship in general, but he has a problem. I don't know exactly what to do.
Okay. Okay, no problem. We'll be flexible. We'll see how it goes.
He's about to come to my place. He will talk to us from my room.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for this inconvenient situation. I don't know exactly how to fix it.
It's happened. Like I said, for all of you and all the participants, I like to ask you to be very flexible, and we'll take our time until we...
Maybe we might do something like that. Maybe Mr. Simovic or Yanevsky might talk to us firstly, then okay. We will talk to each other.
Okay.
Yeah, I could start.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's let me first give to the participants the proper introduction of today's speakers, of you actually, and then we'll turn. Then we'll go Zoran, Professor Zoran, and then Professor Simovic. You will be fine, yeah. I guess. And then we'll give time Arda to fix everything. Then we will go back to this part. So let me just give you a brief introduction of today's speakers and their background. Like I said, I will start with Professor Ramazan. He has been giving lectures in business administration, started in military academy since 1985. He has variety of experience teaching and working in this entrepreneurship area. He was working and teaching also in Canada, Italy, and Azerbaijan Military Academy also. Since 2003, he got retired, and also he had become a head of business administration department of TOBB University, and also a director of continuous education center and TOBB University too. He has many books and articles, conferences, papers. It's in his field. So welcome, Professor, to the webinar. Second speaker will be Professor Arda Tokat, the chairman of the Department of International Department of TOBB University. He has graduated from engineering department from METU Ankara in '96, and then continued his education and professional in US. He's competent master's degree in different disciplines and has his PhD in economics from the City University of New York. He worked in a commodities exchange of New York for 8 years before he started to pursue his career in academics. His research interests are mainly financial derivatives and financial markets. He's been working in Department of Entrepreneurship at TOBB University since 2010, and he has been the head of the department since 2014. Welcome, Professor. I guess he's...
çıkmazsanız.
Yes, he's online. Okay, that's very good. So next one, it's the third speaker. Also, actually, the first speaker, it will be Professor Zoran Janevski, the director of Institute of Economics of Skopje, St. Cyril's and Methodius University in Skopje, Macedonia. Professor Zoran Janevski is an experienced researcher and author in the fields of entrepreneurship and e-business. He holds PhD for his awarded dissertation on entrepreneurship and e-commerce. He developed a model of influence of entrepreneurship, sources of competitiveness, electronics commerce, and strategy of innovation of value on the competitiveness and competitive advantages of enterprises. So, Professor Zoran, welcome. And the last speaker for today will be Professor Vladimir Simovic from Institute of Economic Science from Belgrade, Serbia. Professor Vladimir Simovic earned his PhD in Management Information System at the University of Belgrade in 2012. He has over 10 years of experience in teaching at all university levels in different academic institutions. He is the full-time employee at the Institute of Economic Science in Belgrade, Serbia, as a research and head of business economic department. His professional interest and expertise are in the area of digital marketing and digital entrepreneurship, as well in the area of digital entrepreneurial competitiveness of university students. Professor Simovic, welcome. So without further ado, since we have very distinguished speakers, very experienced in this field, I really do not like to hold floor anymore, and I will like...
Zoran, actually, I'm sorry, guys, but I'm here now, and I changed the computer, so if you don't mind, I can participate. I just went to another room.
Okay. So how do we like to do this organization? So Professor Arda, you will start first, and then
I can start now.
You can start now. Okay. So let's open the floor for discussion with Professor Arda. So
okay, but I cannot share screen. If you let me share screen, please, I appreciate it.
Let me give you, let me just give me 1 second to see how it, you have, now you can.
Now I can?
Yes.
Okay, share screen.
Until Professor Arda is fixing the presentation online, so I would like for the rest of the participants, please hold your questions to the end, and we'll have a specific part that it's dedicated for question and answer. And meanwhile, I really encourage you to write your question and answer your questions in the this toggle here on your screen, which says question and answer, and we will gladly answer. Thank you. Professor Arda, please.
Okay, thank you very much. At first, I'm sorry again for the technical difficulties. I would like to thank at first both Professor Zoran for making this webinar available, and also Ramazan Hoca. And I would like to thank to Ramazan Hoca for sharing his notes and his slides with me. So I'm going to use his slides as a blueprint, and I will continue and add my thoughts about entrepreneurship. Again, I'm sorry, guys, for the technical difficulties we have. So we have been going through a rapid change and transformation in the world economy in the last year, as we know, because of the coronavirus. And this transformation has changed the way of doing business in every sector. We are now working from home, teaching long distance, having seminars like this one online. And with changing all these in this business environment, the entrepreneurship and the way entrepreneurs work has also changed. And when we look at the entrepreneurs in the society, the entrepreneurs are the scarcest resources in the economies. The share of the entrepreneurs in the total population is less than 5%, almost in all countries. So this makes entrepreneurs extinct in our society and in our population. Okay. And when we look at the word entrepreneur, the word comes from French. I believe everybody knows about that. And it means do or doing something. And when we look at it in a general way, it means that handling a job, starting a business, or starting a startup. So although there are many definitions of entrepreneurship, by using the root of the word, we can define entrepreneurship as the process of creating ideas, putting these ideas into practice, transforming them into products and services, and bringing the product together with the need. So there is also another definition of entrepreneurship that focuses on the opportunity. And we can define the entrepreneurship when we focus on opportunity as seeing the need, identifying the thinking and behavior that will meet that need, transforming the need into an opportunity, and integrating actions that result in an opportunity to create the value. So when we use the idea and opportunity together, of course, the innovation evolves between these two. So in a basic sense, when we define innovation, it's an introduction of new methods in different environments to adapt to changing conditions. So innovation is also seeing the existing mismatches as an opportunity and being ready to produce the solution for this mismatch. So as we define, being an entrepreneur requires many distinctive qualities. We can say that every entrepreneur is a businessman, but we cannot say that every businessman is an entrepreneur. So to become an entrepreneur, it's necessary to do something different from others in production, in process, maybe in marketing, or maybe in presentation. So on the basis of the different definitions we made in entrepreneurship, I believe the best definition of the entrepreneur so far we can make is that entrepreneur is a person who can anticipate future needs, perceive them as opportunities, create innovations that can create solutions to these needs, and ensure that the innovation created takes place in life. And when we say in life, I'm talking about the real life. So these are some characteristics of entrepreneurs in a first thought. We can add more or change some of these traits with the changing dynamics. So when we define these dynamics for the these characteristics for the entrepreneur, we are always getting these traits from the entrepreneurs who are successful in today's world. So with all these traits mentioned, unfortunately, entrepreneurs are the heroes of unsuccessful stories. Many entrepreneurs who are successful at the beginning could not maintain their success due to the mistakes or insufficiencies in terms of the management. For example, for Turkey, almost 60% of the companies go bankrupt in the first 5 years. So it shows that most of the new ventures are not very successful, and they need to make some changes the way they are doing business, especially after the ventures get into second stage. So now I would like to mention about the possible reasons for failures in practice, and we can group them to 3 main headlines. The first one is personality, the second one is nature of the business itself, and the last one is the business environment. And when we look at the personality issue, while being brave and aggressive is very important trait for being successful in entrepreneurship, it sometimes causes insufficient consideration of the business and taking unnecessary risks. By the way, when we talk about the risk, I need to mention that there is no excess profit without risk. So it's very important not to avoid any risky establishment, but it's important to assess and analyze the risk before starting any business. So taking into account risk is different than if we don't take into account the risk, then it's kind of a gambling. If we don't assess any risk, then we are doing any investment or opening a business. Now, and we know that especially in developing countries, many entrepreneurs start a new business without even preparing a business plan. And even they have a business plan, it's not really well prepared one. And the business plan with properly assessing opportunities and risks are very vital for the success of the business. When the enterprise is established and when they are in a micro level, mostly they have like 10 and less employees working for the company. In that stage, innovation and making difference is a key point. Being good at a product or process is enough at this stage. But when the business grows, it takes more than being only good at, for example, products itself or a process. So while the enterprise is growing into medium scale and its employee, the size expands, institutionalization is becoming important. And also, especially in family businesses, without a family business constitution, transferring the work to unqualified persons bring the end to the business. So this is a very important major problem for the businesses in Turkey. And the second failure is the nature of work undertaken. First, the business envisioned by the entrepreneur may not be achieved with the resources available. Also, the product or the service may not be the exact match for the problem itself. So, especially the capital deficit may put the entrepreneur in a very difficult situation. So when we talk about the new businesses in Turkey, there is, as I mentioned before, there is another cultural issue with family business. As we mentioned, that they don't have the family business institution. Turkish entrepreneurs and businesses are not open to partnerships. For example, I can give an example. Instead of having a market share of $10 million with 50% partnership, which is gonna be maybe $5 million, the Turkish business owners prefer full ownership with $2 million only. So that way of thinking needs to change for businesses to successfully grow in this kind of environment. And there's also a problem of wrong setup of partnership as well. Ideally, the selected partner needs to complete the missing traits of the other partner. But in Turkey, most of the friendships, the friendship is the key factor of being partners. And these partnerships results in unsuccessful ventures, and they also result in failed friendship as well. Especially the capital deficit may put the entrepreneur in a very difficult situation. When we talk about the new businesses, I'm sorry, I think I mentioned this, right? So opening and growing a business is a very complex process. So details are very important for the success. And underestimation of these details results in failure. So the last item for the failures in practice is the business environment. As I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned the rapid transformation in every sector. And this creates a big challenge for the entrepreneur, as we mentioned. And the solution provided by an entrepreneur can be outdated by the time it arrives to the market because of the rapid changes in needs and in technology. For that reason, the entrepreneur must not only act very quickly, but he or she also needs to foresee the future trends. The competition is also important for failure or success of a new business. So without a proper evaluation of competitors like risks, the failure is inevitable for an entrepreneur. There's a wrong belief that entrepreneurs are born to be an entrepreneur, and which is another problem. There are some characteristics, of course, that depend on the entrepreneur's social and demographic background. But there are certain areas that an entrepreneur needs to improve with training, studying, and learning by doing. So creating a new business has its own challenges, as we mentioned, but another problem is sustaining the business. And sustaining the business, when we compare creating a new venture, it's more difficult in almost all the cases. There's a misconception that entrepreneurs are youngsters. This is another issue about, there's another misconception. And it's not the case in real life. When we look at the average age of entrepreneurs, it's around 30 years old. And right now, since the trends are changing, we can say that the calendar age is just a number. So we have to look at the idea and how we improve our resources and how we get together the resources in suitable way. So now when we come to last point that's important in entrepreneurship, it's the sentimental point and very emotional point, that's the capital. So although it's a big misconception that capital is the most important input for entrepreneurship, it's really not. It's very necessary input for sure, but without a great idea, right marketing or enough demand, the capital is useless. And with great idea, right marketing and demand, it's not difficult to access to capital in this modern world and with these resources. So when we look at the capital from entrepreneur's eyes, as I mentioned, it's the most important component. But as I mentioned again in the beginning of my presentation, a well-prepared business plan is very important, as a very important point. And in that business plan, there are 3 headlines in an order, which are the business idea first, the networking skills, and then the capital at last. And even it's the last component. We said that capital is important, but it's just a tool. The capital is a major component for an entrepreneur. If entrepreneur cannot fund itself. And for that reason, we look at the capital as a detail, and I'm gonna complete my presentation. And as I mentioned, that capital is only a tool. It's not a purpose, but it's a tool that without that tool, it's very difficult to build an establishment, maybe if it's not impossible. Since most of the small-scale businesses are labor-intensive, the initial period of entrepreneurship can be funded with entrepreneurs' own savings. But in the second stage, when the venture grows, the need for capital increases. And also the incentives are more important in the second stage. And these incentives or supports may be provided by, can be provided by the government officials, state officials, or also private sector as well. So these incentives are not only, of course, the capital, but they include other things. And the most important support that may come from the government officials is the information. And of course, the information in our time right now is the most important pillar for everyone. And of course, for entrepreneurs as well. And information such as the supply-demand situation in the market, the impact on that investments, impact on national economy, the future trends, and the competition in international markets. All these information can be provided by the government agencies. And this is how it works in developing countries. And the developed countries, and the developing countries should create such a support for the entrepreneurs. And when we look at the private sector, we come to the need for capital again, and their support to entrepreneurship environment. And when we look at the venture capital network, it's the most important private formation in financing the entrepreneurs. So venture capitals, by the way, are not only helping the new companies in financially, but they also provide their network and experience to the young company. So venture capital network is a very important network for entrepreneurs to grow their businesses. And of course, another source for entrepreneurs, especially in the first stage, is bank loans. But with the bank loans, there's an issue of collateral. And if that issue is resolved, then of course, every entrepreneur can get the bank loans for their businesses. And if that doesn't work, then entrepreneurs can go to their old folk store and they can ask for money like in their teenage years. And entrepreneurship is very important. This is my last slide. It's very important for the society and for the social evolution in a positive way. And the government support is very vital. And the private sector support by venture capitalists also is very important. And these government support and the private support creates the infrastructure necessary for entrepreneurs to be successful. And thank you very much listening for my slide. And again, I'm sorry for technical difficulties. I'm right now making my presentation in a difficult environment, but thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Arda. It was really insightful. Can you close this one so we can get back to the?
Yes.
Yes, very good. So the next presenter will continue, Professor Ramazan Aktaş. Professor, please give us an overview of the rest of these trends and challenges in entrepreneurship.
Thanks a lot for this. Arda, I think, did all his best in order to explain all relevant subjects regarding entrepreneurship. And although my presentations as short as possible, because Arda talked about most of the topics I would like to mention, I'll try to keep it in 10 minutes, okay?
Okay.
First of all, I would like to say what the difference is between a businessman and entrepreneur. As you know, Arda mentioned, and not all businessmen are entrepreneurs, but all entrepreneurs are businessmen because they are different from the businessman in terms of the innovation. He already said which kinds of differentiation are required in order to be entrepreneur. But while making my presentation, I'll use these two concepts interchangeably because the things I'll talk about businessmen is also valid for entrepreneurs as well. So just try to keep this in your mind while making my presentation. Globalization, as you know, is a general concept and it has more complex and advanced meaning than internationalization. If we are talking about a globalized company, it means that it is connected to all other companies in the world in terms of economic activities. And it is also a part of the global culture. So it has some idea about different kinds of cultures as well. Today, as you know, there are lots of companies operating with each other, not only at the local market, but also at global arena as well. If you are coming to Turkey, for example, on the basis of the statistics, there are more than 3.5 million companies operating in Turkey. Alra said that 99.8% of those companies are SMEs. The definition of SME in Turkey is something like that. If you are employing less than 250 people and your total sales revenue is less than 125 million Turkish liras, you are accepted as an SME. If you are looking at these figures, it means that most of the companies in Turkey are SMEs and 91% of them are micro-scale companies. These are the companies whose number of employees is less than 10 and their total sales revenue is less than 300,000 euros. Please look at these numbers. It is very, very important to understand what our economy is. And I think it is similar to other countries in terms of the numbers of SMEs in every economy. But as you know, in order to keep your business sustainable, it's necessary for those companies to grow. If you are looking at those companies in Turkey, it is also, I'll give you some examples how to be sustainable in such a respect. It is also true for other countries as well. As you know, in order to be sustainable, in order to provide a sustainable growth in the part of the SMEs, it is necessary for those companies to grow based upon their equity. In order to improve their net profit to equity ratio, it is necessary for those companies to improve their productivity. That's the vital issue. In Turkey, generally, there is a very serious problem among SMEs and large-scale companies. For example, if you are looking at any SME in Turkey, their growth potential is quite limited due to the lack of productivity. Their output-input ratio is quite low. And approximately their productivity is 1/4 of the large-scale companies. Why? Because they are not paying any importance to the training of their own employees. That's the first issue. They do not know how to motivate their own people. This is the second issue. And also, they are not paying any attention to the branding. They are satisfied with their existing customers. And also, they do not know how to create something unique. their R&D activities are limited. They are not paying enough capital for these sort of efforts. And also their marketing and sales efforts are limited due to their budget. They are spending at most 5% of their total sales revenue for such an effort. And also, they are not doing anything in order to export their own items to other countries as well. And there is another problem, their financial literacy is quite low. So all these things are making very difficult for them to be sustainable. Arda mentioned that in the manufacturing industry, approximately 59% of the companies are going bankrupt in their first 5 years. It is a fact. If you are not growing in the end, you will be very small and not possible for you to compete with the large-scale companies. As you know, some companies are thinking that in order to be sustainable, it is necessary for them to keep their business as small as possible. By means of this, you are keeping the risk under control. It can work only for short term. But in the long run, as you know, it is necessary for those companies to grow. There is a very nice maxim set in finance: too big to fail. If you are big enough, it means that whenever you are facing any difficulty, you will find support from the state side as well, because you are increasing the systemic risk of the economy. So some of the guys are aware of that fact, and they are just trying to extend their own business to other countries as well. Here, I would like to give you what the difference is between local and global entrepreneurship. As I said to you before, in order to be sustainable in the long run, it is necessary for those companies to have global enterprises. So what are the main differences between these two groups of businessmen are? Local ones are targeting local markets and they are making their plans based on that. But it's not the case for global competition. It needs global targeting and planning. They are working with few employees, but global ones are working with more employees and more talented people. And for the local ones, strategic regional urban planning is the case, but for global competition, it is necessary for them to have general and multi-purpose planning. They are interacting with fewer people, but they are interacting with more people. And here they are generally working with labor-intensive technology. So technology is not a sophisticated one, but if you are competing with the global companies, it is necessary for you to have more sophisticated technology. For the local ones, they are satisfied with the local market and generally they are basing their operation in only one country. But for the global competition, it is necessary for them to have a very large network and making business in other countries as well. And they are only giving contribution to the local economy. But as you know, if you are a global company, it means that you are contributing to other economies as well. And here the competition is quite low, here competition is quite high. And they are generally local ones, local businessmen are establishing regional companies, but they are trying to establish multinational companies. Here, as I said to you before, cultural similarities are not creating any problem in the part of the businessman. But here, if you are operating in different countries, it is necessary for you to get an idea about different cultures. Here, I would like to mention something about different cultures. As it is known, cultures are different from each other in terms of a number of dimensions put forward by Hofstede analysis. This analysis is saying to us that cultures are different from each other in terms of individual society or collectivist society, masculine society or feminine society, to cope with the uncertainty and power distance. I would like to give an example from Turkey. If you are coming to Turkey, generally our society is a collectivist society. It means that in this society, it is not good for anybody to say me. We generally prefer to use us, even though we are the ones making the business alone. And also in this society, we are generally a feminine society in such a sense that we are taking care of our relatives whenever they are in need. It is good for, as you know, for providing support to those people, but also it is creating some problems in such a way that whenever you are finding someone helping you, it means that not necessary for you to be strong enough to cope with the difficulties you are facing. And also power distance in my society is very, very large. We are putting a very low distance between the businessman and his or employees. This is not the case for Western society. Whenever an employee is willing to reach to his boss or her boss, not easy for him or her to do this. And the fourth one is related to uncertainty. In Turkey, generally, in every 4 or 5 years, we are facing a very serious economic crisis. And whenever any economic crisis happens, generally we are demanding a support from the state side. These are the main cultural differences. So our businessman is aware of the fact that there are different kinds of cultures, and it is necessary for them to get an idea about those cultures and also to train their own employees about these cultural differences. Not only cultural differences, but gestures and mimics are also very important for such a purpose. I think these are the things I would like to talk about right now. And generally, global companies are very important for the economy. Please look at the first 100 top brands in the world. Unfortunately, there is not any Turkish brand there. So our aim is to have these sort of companies. It is necessary for those companies to be aware of the advantages provided by being a global company, and also it is necessary for the state to provide the necessary incentives for those companies who are willing to be an international company. Thanks a lot for listening to me.
Very good. Thank you, Professor Ramazan. It was really insightful and give some pretty much very important data about SMEs, because it's all about SMEs. Most of our economies are based on SMEs or micro companies that are really trying to find a way surviving these changes. But however, these changes is not just from the environment, it's also subjective. So they need to do something, and you just open up a field for new areas that we'll discuss. Professor Ramazan, would you be so kind to stop sharing?
Yeah, okay.
Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
So having said that SMEs are really the ones who needs not just the skills, also the more understanding of those changes of the environment. And the next speaker, Professor Zoran Janevski, will give us something that most of those especially the beginners and SMEs will use in their planning process. And he will talk about the methodology of probability of success, which is something very interesting that Professor Zoran will explain it now. Professor, the floor is yours.
Professor Ivanov, Professor Ramazan, Professor Arda, and Professor Simovic, let me start with, let me express my feelings about today's event. I'm very, very happy to have this opportunity to discuss with all of you about different aspects of the entrepreneurship, and to have the opportunity maybe later on to provoke some questions and participations of our online audience. So today I will talk about a methodology for determining the success probability of entrepreneurs' idea. And we at the Institute of Economics are working on this methodology. We are developing this methodology. And first of all, I would like to give you a brief overview how it comes that we decided to work on this methodology, why we thought that this is very important for Macedonia and for contribution of the development of entrepreneurial system in our country. So let me start first with the entrepreneurship ecosystem. Professor Arda talked a little bit about all of these elements, but I will just go briefly through this. An entrepreneurial ecosystem or entrepreneurship ecosystem is consisted of 6 different elements or domains or pillars. And in order to create a sustainable entrepreneurship, 1 or even 2 or even 3 different elements in the ecosystem are rarely sufficient. These elements are policy, finance, culture, support, human capital, and markets. And in regions and countries which have extensive amounts of entrepreneurship, many of these elements are strong and typically have evolved in parallel. The governments who want to foster more entrepreneurship as part of economic policy must strengthen several such elements simultaneously. And in the best possible scenario, they need to strengthen all of them equally. However, recent research shows that government policy is often limited in what it can do to develop entrepreneurial ecosystem. So how this is connected with our methodology? So in the Republic of North Macedonia, many of these elements have been correctly identified, and a number of programs and activities have been undertaken and implemented for their improvement. So I can say that the entrepreneurial ecosystem in North Macedonia is not great, not excellent. Maybe it's not even well developed, but it's good developed. But still, there is a lot of room for improvement. Many of these elements are not good enough, and we are not satisfied at all. I will give you some brief overview of some of these indicators. And that's why we started to find what is behind all of these elements of ecosystems. What is that final touch that is missing in our country? According to the Doing Business report for 2020, in terms of the benefits of business regulation in 190 economies, the Republic of North Macedonia for 2020 is ranked on the 17th place, and it's really high place. In addition to the confirmed good business climate in favor of businesses, and we must say that this climate, the regulation and the policies prepared with a satisfactory level of compliance with European Union legislation. Also in North Macedonia, there are a number of institutions, for example, Agency for Promotion of Entrepreneurship of the Republic of North Macedonia, then Sector for Entrepreneurship and Competitiveness of the SMEs at the Ministry of Economy, then National Council for Entrepreneurship and Competitiveness, and many, many other institutions on central and local levels. And all of these, they design and implement a wide range of activities for development of entrepreneurship. No less important are the facts that show that there are quality financial institutions in the country that support entrepreneurial ventures. Also, entrepreneurship is incorporated in the educational programs of different levels of education in Macedonia. And recently, the efforts for building a favorable entrepreneurial culture in the society are strengthened by intensifying campaigns for raising public awareness for benefits of entrepreneurship development. However, despite all these efforts and commitment, it can be seen that in terms of certain issues related to entrepreneurship, North Macedonia is still lagging behind. Thus, in 2018, according to the number of newly opened enterprises per 1,000 inhabitants, North Macedonia, with 3.6 newly established enterprises per 1,000 inhabitants, lags behind many EU member states. For example, in Bulgaria, this index is 10.1, in Croatia 5.8, in Cyprus 17.6, Iceland 9.9, Luxembourg 17.2. Because we have presenters from Serbia and Turkey. In Serbia, for example, this index is 1.9, and in Turkey 1.6. According to the number of active enterprises per 1,000 inhabitants in 2018 in North Macedonia, this indicator is 28.2, while the same one for the EU member states is 49.4. Serbia is above this EU average with 54.9. And in Turkey, we have 36.2 active enterprises per 1,000 inhabitants. Regarding the companies that have been newly established in the last 30 years in the country, there are almost no ones that have managed to position somehow themselves more seriously and become recognizable by their products or services at the international market. Actually, there is no single company that is recognizable even in the regional market as well. Innovation as one of the immanent characteristics of entrepreneurship is underdeveloped in Macedonia, unfortunately. Namely, according to the European Innovation Scoreboard 2020, North Macedonia, with an innovation index of 48.5, belongs to the group of so-called modest innovators. But on the other hand, Serbia and Turkey with 67.1 and 67.8 belongs to the moderate innovators countries. The situation is more serious because of the fact that although the support for innovation and development should reach 3% of GDP, North Macedonia currently allocates only 0.18%. I will repeat, 0.18% of GDP for research and innovation. Actually, innovation or entrepreneurship starts from an idea. It is very often that we see or hear about some new product or service, and we usually say, oh, it's so obvious, the idea is great. Why didn't I think of that? Actually, most of the ideas that are turned into new businesses or result in new and improved products or services come from information and observations that we are surrounded by every day. So successful entrepreneurs have learned to pay attention to the cues that are around them and to ask many questions of things that most people take for granted. This search and capture of new ideas that lead to business opportunities is called opportunity recognition. And opportunity recognition skill is probably the most basic and important skill of entrepreneurs, especially of the successful ones. But is every good idea a viable business opportunity? Definitely not. And we have so many examples of bad business ideas in the world that seemed great in concept, but were poor in execution. The business world and the entrepreneurs learned, but in many cases very harshly, that not every idea is evaluated properly or deserves to evolve into a business. And two aspects are very important for entrepreneurial ideas. The first one is the total supply of business ideas in a national economy. And the second aspect is the quality of business ideas. That is, how many of them will cause starting of a new entrepreneurial ventures that will survive or even grow. And Macedonia is struggling with both. One of the biggest issues in North Macedonia concerning entrepreneurship and small and medium enterprises are lack of ideas for starting new entrepreneurial ventures and lack of support that would help existing ideas to gain greater probability for market success. According to one research for the entrepreneurial ideas and opportunity recognition in North Macedonia, the existing and would-be entrepreneurs are not sure about the potential of their new business ideas, and they would like to cooperate with the universities and research institutes in order to gain some quantitative or even qualitative indicators. They will show them if their idea could be successful or not. In North Macedonia, there is an obvious need for this as well, to establish a central point where entrepreneurs, current and the future one, can turn and get all the available solutions based on scientific knowledge on how to develop and launch a certain innovative idea into the market. For example, very often, entrepreneurs have only a rough outline of new business idea, but do not have the ability to see or know if the idea has a real basis, is it feasible, how it can be assessed or even tested, and how the entrepreneur can continue to form or establish a new company based on that idea. At the Institute of Economics Skopje, we are working on development of a methodology and tool for testing and comprehensive feasibility analysis of new entrepreneurial ideas. This methodology is not finished yet, but is consisted of 6 pillars with several elements in each of them. These pillars are product or service, market, entrepreneurial team, resources, intellectual property, and profit. The methodology incorporates internal, as you can see, and external business forces that could affect the idea that is tested for feasibility. And at the end, it gives an indicative, qualitative, or quantitative measure about the extent to which the idea is viable and realistic. The methodology and the tool would help entrepreneurs in Macedonia to assess whether their idea is sound and could lead to a viable business. And this will help them to determine success probability of their entrepreneurship idea. And according to our experience developing this methodology and the tool, we have identified we are facing several problems with new ideas. The first one is that the idea cannot be economically made into a product or service. The second one, very often, is that the resulting product or service works, but it does not appeal to a large enough market to make the effort profitable. And the third one is that the product or service works, has a market, and could be profitable, but the entrepreneur needs to get additional people with knowledge, different knowledge, additional skills or competencies, or need to get additional funding or some other resources to make idea to convert it into a business. I will end here. Thank you for your attention, and I would be glad to answer any question you have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Professor Janevsky. It was very insightful, and those are actually six pillars that really need to be concerned, not just in a idea process, but even now during this time of change we have. It's a perfect topic, and it's a very wide open space for discussion. I'm really happy to see that the questions are still coming, which is perfect. So let's continue with our presentation. Lately, I have been noticed that in the past 5 years, let's say maybe even more, this economy and the market is changing from material based to knowledge based. So knowledge basically is based on it's base ground for everything what we are talking about. So that's why I would like to give the floor to Vladimir, Professor Vladimir Simic. So he will talk about education and do we provide enough digital competencies for the students, because this is where all started at the very beginning. Professor Simovic, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Ivanov. Just give me a second to start my presentation. Okay. Can you please confirm me that you can see my screen? Is everything okay in this view? Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Before I start, I would like to say that actually the presentation held by Professor Janevsky was a great introduction to and a complementary theme and a topic regarding the things that my team from the Institute of Economic Sciences and I were examining in the past 6 years and will hopefully continue to do so in the forthcoming period. As you may see here, the topic that we are addressing and that I'm going to elaborate briefly today with you is in regards to digital entrepreneurial competencies of university students. And the thing that my team and I were wondering before we have started working on this project or this research, in other words, was whether we as a university professors and whether the formal university educational system provides our students with the necessary knowledge and skills and competencies for them to be able to start their own business ventures and startups at the end of their formal educational process on universities. In regards to this topic, of course, a background would be associated with several key factors and things which are actually driving the development of the digital entrepreneurship as a concept in global terms. The first one would be the number of internet users. According to available data sources at this moment, approximately 5.1 billion people worldwide are using internet. And this thing represents, before all, a huge virtual market. And this is something that digital entrepreneurs are recognizing as an opportunity, and of course, developing the corresponding products, services, and their businesses, which are offering some value propositions to those people simply in order to attract their attention and simply to make profitable businesses. On the other side, we have the growing number of digital startups, again, as a direct consequence of this fact. I read somewhere that on a yearly basis, we are having approximately 1.5 to 2 million digital startups only, meaning that as a world, we are in a need for more advanced digital entrepreneurship competencies, and that we as a university professors and universities and formal education in general are actually responsible to provide those people with necessary knowledge and expertise in these regards. On the other side, we are having the growing number of universities throughout the world who are offering different types of digital entrepreneurial competence and in general different digital entrepreneurial programs which are aimed to provide their students with some levels of digital entrepreneurial competencies. The problem lies in the fact that we are actually not receiving it. We don't have any information in regards to the actual levels of the digital entrepreneurial competencies that our students are acquiring at the end of their formal education. And this is the focal point of our research, and this is the reason why we have decided to step into this research and simply develop all the necessary steps and to provide, hopefully, to provide the solution for this problem and to provide, of course, the necessary data in these regards.
Professor Simovic, I'm sorry. The presentation is frozen, so we cannot see what's going on.
I'm not sure what seems to be the problem in this regards. I will try to exit my, just a second, sorry. I will exit the full screen mode and try to simply switch the slides this way.
Okay,
Is it better
now it's okay. Now,
okay,
yes,
okay.
now it's okay. Yes.
Okay, then we will continue this way. When it comes to the problem itself, in terms of the numbers, we have conducted an estimate here in Serbia based on some data provided by Statistical Office in Serbia, of course. And we have made an estimation in terms of the numbers of graduates which will graduate by 2030 here in Serbia in a possession of some level of digital entrepreneurial competencies, again, based on the number of higher educational institutions in Serbia at the moment, which is around 80, who are offering digital entrepreneurial courses in their curriculums. On the other side, in the meantime, we have managed to establish a cooperation with our colleagues from Kuwait. And as a direct consequence of that collaboration, we actually received a grant over there as well. And now we have a multidisciplinary team and team of people from 2 countries who are working on this project at the moment, at the initial phase of this project. And for that purpose, we also have conducted an estimation for Kuwait as well, again, taking into consideration the number of institutions who are working in Kuwait and providing, of course, digital entrepreneurial courses in their curriculums. And our estimation says that for that country, by 2030, there will be around 400,000 to 440,000 graduates in possession of some level of digital entrepreneurial competencies. The main problem here, as I said at the beginning, is that there is no data regarding the actual level that those people, those students who are graduating have received through the system of formal education on the universities in Serbia and Kuwait, since those 2 countries are at the moment in a focus of our research. So the task for us was to simply try to provide and figure out how we can solve this issue and simply use the existing knowledge in this area to create a methodology which can be and will be used for the purpose of providing the necessary data in regards to the successfulness of the university education in regards to digital entrepreneurial competencies. So our solution relies definitely on these elements. The first one, of course, is something that we already conducted to map the existing knowledge in regards to digital entrepreneurial competencies. And as I said earlier, at the moment, we are conducting the first phase of our research as a part of a grant that we have received from Kuwait. And in this regards, we actually are in the stage of formulating the digital entrepreneurship competence framework. What is the point of this? In terms of digital competencies in general, there is something at the level of European Union which is called DigiComp, Digital Competence Framework, which is used for the purpose of assessing the level of general digital competencies of European citizens. On the other side, there is another framework which is called Entrepreneurship Competence Framework, which is used for the purpose of assessing and defining, before all, of course, defining the competence areas and assessing the levels of entrepreneurship competence levels in general population. Our idea with this research was to simply combine those 2, since digital entrepreneurial competencies as a concept represent a combination of general and entrepreneurial competencies. And in these regards, to create a completely new digital entrepreneurship competence framework, which will be used and which will serve as a basis for creating a tool which will later be used for the purpose of assessing the levels of digital entrepreneurship competencies of university students in different countries. This is also something which needs to be emphasized here. In these regards, after we finish creating the framework and after we develop the assessment methodology based on that framework, the final step would be to develop an online digital entrepreneurship competence assessment tool. And for this purpose, of course, besides using the frameworks which exist on the level of the European Union, we would also use as a role model something that you can see here on my screen. This is so-called digital competence wheel, online tool which was developed on the level of European Union for the purpose of assessing the general digital competence levels in general population. It is based on self-assessment. On the other side, we will use, of course, this tool as a starting point, and our final goal is to develop our own online tool for the purpose of assessing the digital entrepreneurial competencies of the university students. But besides self-assessment, we plan to include the experimental part as well, meaning we would like to assess using real-life scenarios and using the practical assignments. We would like to simply and integrate them, of course, here in this tool. We would like to simply use those things as well for the purpose of receiving as possible, of course, levels of accurate information regarding the competencies of university students. Of course, after that, after we create an online assessment tool, our plan is to simply conduct a large-scale research, meaning that online tool can be used from different countries in the world very easily. We would have a methodology, then we will include the scientists from other countries. And this is also one of the reasons why I'm very happy to be here today. And of course, to use any occasion I have, as well as the team members from the Institute of Economic Sciences, for the purpose of promoting this idea and simply trying to attract some other scientists who are willing to take a part in this research, and to simply provide us with the opportunity to conduct a research on the level of different countries in Europe, and of course in some other parts of the world, as for example in Kuwait. So in this regards, those would be the main activities which were planned under our project, and hopefully will bring us to the phase where we will have the online tool and we will conduct, of course, the research. And based on the data that we are going to receive from that research, the first thing that we are going to do is, of course, to assess the actual levels of the digital entrepreneurial competencies of our students. And this is the first objective. But also, besides that, we plan to analyze and identify the factors which are affecting the levels of digital entrepreneurial competencies of the students, whether those factors are associated with some institutional reasons, for example, or some individual factors, etc. So in this regards, our plan is to conduct this kind of analysis as well. And hopefully, if we manage to include different countries in our research, maybe one of the aspects of our research would be a benchmark analysis, of course, in order to compare those data between the countries. For now, we can do it, and we plan to do it on the relation between Serbia on one side and Kuwait on the other side. When it comes to the implications of our research, it is actually quite simple. We expect that as a result of the things that we plan to achieve within this project, we would have the tool which can be used for assessing the levels of digital entrepreneurial competencies of our students. And as a direct consequence, the universities and the higher education institutions in general would be able to adjust their educational programs to the actual labor market needs much better and much more efficient compared to current situation. On the other side, we expect our students, of course, this would be also one of the important implications of the research in the future, of course. We expect our students to have a higher level of digital entrepreneurial competencies on their graduation as a direct result of the fact that the universities will adjust their programs in accordance with the results obtained from this and similar research. And finally, definitely the economy in general, in our opinion, would have there would be a positive impact in these regards as well, because we expect to receive as a final result in some short to long-term period of time to have higher number of digital startups on the level of the economy as the direct result of the previous consequences and implications. On the other side, when it comes to the potential expansions of our research, we see the opportunity in the area of other competence area actually, because there are no limits. If we have positive results and positive overall effects when it comes to this specific type of competencies, there's no reason for other scientists simply not to use the similar methodology as a starting point for the purpose of creating the tools for other competence areas, because we are definitely lacking. When I say we, I mean globally, we are lacking when it comes to the number of tools which are used for these purposes. And of course, finally, and I definitely integrated those things into my presentation so far, this is also a call. And this is a reason why, as I said earlier, I'm very happy to be here today. This would be a call for the scientists from other countries. As I said, at the moment, we are in the first phase of the project, meaning that we are creating a digital entrepreneurship competence framework. And after we create it, and after we create a methodology itself and calibrate it, we will use it on a limited sample of students, which will be for now 100 students, 50 from Serbia, 50 from Kuwait, only to calibrate the methodology and to see the results that we are going to achieve in these regards. As soon as we finish those things and as soon as we calibrate our methodology, the next step would be to create an online assessment tool. This is actually the second stage of the project. And finally, and hopefully, we will use it for the purpose of assessing the levels of digital entrepreneurial competencies of university students in other countries. And this is where I see an opportunity for scientists from other countries who are interested, of course, in this idea to simply collaborate. And in these regards, of course, if you want to take a part in this research and simply provide us with your feedback, comments, or whatever, these are my contacts. So feel free, please, to contact me at any time. And thank you one more time, of course, for your attention during this presentation. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Professor Simovic, for such an insightful and very contemporary idea and ongoing project. So, without further ado, there's a few questions that are coming in, and I like to start to answering them. Let's start with the last one with Professor Simovic. There is one question from Professor Ali Dirios. He was asking about would you also plan to include either a glossary or a collection of articles and cases? When I think it was the question meant for the project itself.
Can you repeat the question? To be honest, I didn't understand the point.
Yeah, the question is, would you also plan to include either a glossary or collection of articles and cases?
As a part of our initial phase of the project, definitely. Yes, definitely. In the initial part, when we scan for the literature and we conduct the mapping of the knowledge in regards to digital entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial competencies, definitely the plan is to include all available resources in these regards. Academic on one side, of course, as well as non-academic sources would be definitely very important in these regards. And this is something that we plan to include and to provide as a final result and one of the outputs of our project.
Okay, thank you. The next question is about entrepreneurship and the skills. I think, Professor Arda, this is a question for you, I guess. Batukan Güneş is asking, thank you for all these enlightening talks. I'm curious about one issue. Could you explain what would be the new skills that entrepreneurs need to have in order to survive today's challenges? Thank you very much.
Actually, let me start answering that, and I would like other professors to contribute. The first thing I'm going to say is the entrepreneurs need to be ready for change. Now, what happened last 1 year? Actually, we were going to go, in the beginning of my presentation, I mentioned that we are changing the way we are doing business, like online seminars, long distance teaching, and other things that COVID-19 made us do right now. But actually, if there was no COVID-19, we would have transformed to these changes maybe in 10 years or 15 years. But right now, we had to make that change in 2 months. Right? So the entrepreneurs should be ready for this rapid change, and they need to be very flexible. And another thing, they need to get as much information as possible for their market, because the information is changing very fast. So they need to get the information. We are in an information age, and they need to get the information and process it and respond to changes of the markets very fast. This is what I will say, different than the entrepreneurs 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
May I say something about regarding this?
Absolutely, that was my next thing.
I think the most important point for them is to focus on success instead of money. If they are successful, in the end they will make money. This is a very important point. Generally, the guys are trying to make money in the short run. This is the biggest mistake they are making. And also, they are not paying so much importance to network. Know-how is important, but also know-who is very important. Arda talked about this. In my opinion, the most important point is to construct a very nice network. Without network, it is not possible for them to be successful. If you are paying so much importance to the business idea, generally they are failing. Money is also important, but the most important one is network.
Okay. Any other professors wants to add something? Okay. Let's move this to the next questions. I see here two questions for Professor Janevski. There are two questions for you, so I'll go one by one, if I may. It will be easier. The question is asking Janer Jan. He's actually, I know him personally. He's a master's degree student here at TOBB University. And his question is this: what is the most important element of the ecosystem? So that's one. What is the advantages of ecosystem in Macedonia? And what is the disadvantages or weak point of the Macedonian ecosystem of entrepreneurship?
So I try to explain in few sentences. The ecosystem, entrepreneurial ecosystem in Macedonia it's as I said, it's good. All the required elements are established, and according to some reports, some studies, for example, I gave you some results from the Doing Business report from the last year. According to many studies and researches we have, on paper at least, we have good entrepreneurship ecosystem. All of the required elements are in place. But I will say, and there, I cannot say that one of these elements is more important, or it's a key element in this ecosystem. As I said previously, all of these elements are equally important. All of these elements should be developed equally and in parallel. You cannot start working on policy without developing institutions, or if you don't work on programs for funding entrepreneurial ideas, you cannot do anything. So you must work on all of these elements in parallel. So what is the advantages? There is no single element that is much more developed or improved from the rest of 5 of them in Macedonia, at least. Maybe the market is the biggest issue in our country, because most of the people are thinking only locally. As Professor Ramazan said, there is a big difference between global and local entrepreneurship. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of some cultural problems. Macedonian people, Macedonian population is not trying to think globally. we are changing that, especially with these new generations, with new internet generations, with young people born globally. But we need some time to change our mindset.
Thank you, Professor. There is also one more question for you. Do you have any proven records about tools helping entrepreneurs getting funding?
Sorry, can you repeat this? I have some problems with the connections. Is it something for me or?
Yes, Professor Janevski, is for you.
Yes,
the question is in the same context. Do you have any proven records about tool helping entrepreneurs getting funding?
It's probably connected with the methodology and the tool.
Yes, the methodology. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe I was not clear enough. The methodology and the tool, they are not developed yet. They're not finished, especially the tool. But as I said, the intention, the goal of developing this methodology is not to have additional tool helping entrepreneurs to get funding more easily. As Professor Arda and Professor Ramazan said, the funding comes last at the end. What is, as we find out in our research, the pool of idea in Macedonia, it's very poor. I will give you an example of what is the quantum of ideas that should be developed in order to have one success on the market. According to one author, a big name in entrepreneurship, he said, you need 3,000 ideas for new businesses in order to get only 4 of them into the pilot phase. Only 2 of all of these will come to the market with a new product or services in order to have one success. So our intention is to help existing entrepreneurs and the new one, because ideas is generated in Macedonia, according to our research, equally in the existing entrepreneurs and the new generations and would-be and so-called would-be entrepreneurs. So we are trying to help them and to help Macedonian economy to extend this pool of ideas. First of all, just to have a bigger quantum of business ideas. And the second main goal of this methodology is to encourage them to start entrepreneurial process. And in this process, funding comes when it comes. But they're not even trying to start. They're afraid. They want some incentives, especially from the science, from the university. If you tell them that, yes, some entrepreneurs have, for example, 3 business ideas to start a new business. And if you go with, if you process all of these 3 business ideas through this methodology and through this tool, you will have that it is more probably that the idea number 1 will success prior that idea number 2 and idea number 3. That could help a lot, especially in Macedonia, according to our circumstances.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Considering the time, there is a last question, and it is meant for Professor Simovic. If I'm reading well, there are a couple of more, so I will read it very slowly. Are the students you mentioned from business and economics department? If not, how about social science students? Analyzing is one of the core elements of social science, and in the new digital era, we need improved digital tools and skills in order to be successful. How can we, as social science students, have good understanding about digital entrepreneurship, since we are the ones who need and consume the products? So this question is coming from one of the master's level students, Oznur. So thank her for a very insightful question, Professor.
Okay, of course, I will try to address everything. If I miss something, please just remind me.
Okay.
When it comes to the selection of the students, actually we are focusing on the business students who have also in their curriculums, they have IT courses. So a combination of two is the primary sample for us. And those are the students who should simply develop the certain level of digital entrepreneurial competencies by the end of their formal education. When it comes to the second part and the second question regarding the social science students, that would be, in my opinion, this is a space for an extension I mentioned earlier. So our results and our methodology can be, in my opinion, used later from the perspective of different sciences, from social sciences as well, in terms of assessing the current level of the, not digital entrepreneurial competencies, but digital social science competencies, for example, and to simply assess their level at the moment. And later, of course, in accordance with those findings, I would suggest implementing some measures to improve them, of course. So I'm not very familiar with the social sciences in these regards, but in terms of assessing those levels and in terms of using our methodology, I would simply suggest this way from the perspective of that question.
Very good. Thank you, Professor. So that was, we're just reaching at the end. So before we give these closing remarks, I really like to give the final words to our two distinguished professors, Zoran Janevski and Professor Ramazan. Do you have any closing remarks, Professor Ramazan, for today's webinar?
First of all, I would like to thank to all distinguished speakers, and I think I have learned a lot in my part. I would like to say something about capital again. Mr. Janevski and Arda mentioned about the importance of the capital, but capital is not so much important in today's globalized world. As you know, look at Apple. This is the most valuable company of today. This company started from a garage, and most of the companies in the digital area started from a garage without needing so much money. We are making surveys in Turkey how capital is more important. If you are asking the boss of the SMEs, generally they are saying that capital is the most important point for their success. Believe me, if you are giving more money for them, they will go bankrupt again because they do not know how to benefit from the money. Their financial literacy is quite low. So they are thinking that if it's possible for them to reach the funds, everything will be okay. But it's not the correct thing. So it is necessary for them to improve their financial literacy as well, how to benefit from the financial leverage. This is the most important point we are seeing in Turkey. I think this is also okay for other countries as well, in my opinion.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any final thoughts, any of the speakers?
I would like to add something. As I said at the beginning, I think that this is just a great event. And thank you for all of you for your participation. And now we can see that there are many similarities between our countries. There are some specifics as well, but there are many similarities, especially in developing businesses, entrepreneurship. And I think that we should intensify our cooperation in the future, and we should maybe establish some platform how to cooperate, to discuss, to share thoughts, ideas, maybe to start working on the joint project. Why not? But I think that a bright future is in front of us. So I'm very happy. So thank you for all of you.
Okay, thank you.
Just 1 minute for me, please. And at the end of the seminar, I could look directly to the screen because I had to use 2 computers when I was doing my presentation. And again, I would like to say, I'm sorry, guys, that I had that difficulty for some reason and I had to move to my colleague's office. But right now, everything is set up. And thank you very much for making this possible. And I would like to make the next seminar or panel face-to-face, hopefully, either in Macedonia or in Turkey or anywhere, you know. So I hope that next year we'll
Maybe in Serbia, Arda.
or in Serbia.
You're all welcome to Serbia, of course.
Okay.
Let's go in Ohrid. Let's go in Ohrid. I'm inviting you, all of you. Let's see all of. Let's try to see maybe this autumn. Why not in Ohrid Lake?
Yeah, we are planning to organize such a meeting in Ankara first, maybe in August, in September or October. Zoran?
Yes, we're talking about October.
Yeah, we are planning to do something like that. We are willing to cooperate with you, and there are so many things to be done by working together. And the methodologies you presented are very impressive indeed. I am impressed in my part. So we would like to cooperate with you in the days to come, I hope.
Professor Simovic?
Definitely, I'm glad to hear. I was glad to be here, as I said many times before. And for the final thought, as Professor Janeski said, it would be nice to make this kind of collaboration something which will happen from time to time on a regular basis. Actually, maybe even more in a more less formal environment. And definitely, we all established today that there is room for all of us to cooperate and collaborate. And I'm looking forward for the opportunities which may arise from this webinar and some additional occasions which will arise in the future. Thank you very much all.
Thank you, professors. Thank you for all of your thoughts. So now give me a few seconds to close this webinar. First of all, thank you for these 2 organizations, institutions, Institutes of Economics of Skopje and TOBB University from Ankara to organizing this event. And thank you for all of your time, distinguished professors, to sharing, unselfishly sharing your experience. And you just touched the iceberg of the whole area that is just in front of us. In order to keep myself not talking a lot, because now I have lots of things to say after everything you said right now, and you just open these doors for many different questions, I will just end this webinar with 1 sentence. If we continue sharing our experience, that's the only way how we can survive the challenges of the unknowns that we're facing in today. So with this sentence, I like to close this webinar and say thank you once again for all of you. Thank you for all these participants that we have and asking these questions. And we'll keep you posted definitely for the next activities. And stay in touch. And first of all, stay healthy. Thank you once again for all of you participating in the webinar.